Hello, World Wide Web. Welcome back to the Hangin With Web Show. I'm GW Pomichter. Thank you so much for logging on, tuning in. If you haven't done it yet, we really love it if you'd go down and hit subscribe. In fact, we'll wait for you. Right there, you. Okay. Now that you've done that, remember to come back over and over again, find some fantastic authors, artists, filmmakers, creators of all kinds here on the Hangin With Web Show. We are at Claremont Comic-Con and we are hanging with graphic artist, illustrator, and graphic novelist. Very, yes, prestigious.
Well, I do try.
Alan McMillian. Alan, thanks for hanging with us, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. So, well, let's start with graphic novelist because it's the most, you know, distinguished of your titles.
Well, I like to call myself that, yeah. I have this belief that part of the reason the comics industry tends to lag behind in terms of entertainment industries is that they have a hard time taking themselves seriously. At least in America. In Europe or Japan, it's different. And part of it has to do with how seriously the creators themselves take the work. Not taking yourself seriously can get away from you. It does to me sometimes. But if we start treating the work as an adult endeavor, then I think we can actually make some progress in terms of changing the nature of the way the industry is thought of.
Absolutely. Well, and that's just it, I think, is that because we have a lot of fun doing what we do, because we're in a medium that no matter what happens is always associated with young people, even though as we get older we still enjoy it. There's that tendency not to take it as seriously. I remember probably on a DVD, before the internet there were these things, they were little, they put it in a machine, they'd play. Listening to the studios rail on when the original Star Wars was in theaters, all referring to it as that little kid's film. You know, it was a children's film that changed the way filmmaking is done today. Yeah. And I think the comic book industry is an example of that. Those are those little kids' books that they read, but they're not. Graphic novels can be full of very adult, very real life drama and context.
Oh yeah.
And so if we take the material seriously, much more than we take ourselves seriously, because let's face it, look at us. Really? Do you take it? Don't answer that. The internet's mean.
Oh, you don't have to
They'll
tell me.
answer that.
I've been on Facebook, I know.
Yes, yes, yes. Facebook for us, for the geek community, is like high school again. And that wasn't fun either. So, so what are you currently working on? What's your latest project?
Well, right now, I've just completed work for a company called Inverse Press. They have a sub-imprint called Squared Circle. They do biographical comics about wrestlers from the 80s and the 90s.
Very cool, yeah.
And I just finished artwork, my part of the artwork, on a book about Lenny Poffo.
Wow.
Lenny Poffo, for those who don't know, was known as the Genius, and before that he was Leaping Lenny, but he's also the brother of Randy Macho Man Savage.
Wow. So, you know, we know a little bit about that. There's a I almost want to call it a movement. It really is, to bring the wrestling community into the comic community in our stories. And it's actually a pretty exciting time for that right now, because you get to do a lot of biographical research and learn about these guys who are childhood heroes in the first place, and then you get to write them into a comic. That's got to be pretty cool.
Well, what I have discovered is really interesting about it is that there's the sense of heightened reality that you have when you draw superhero books or when you draw comics transfers over very easily to the heightened reality of working in wrestling. Because as a shorthand, yeah, they're both about men in tights punching each other. But You also
and
have...
there's our whole childhood in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Okay.
But beyond that, when you talk about wrestling, you talk about kayfabe. And the sort of meta stories that go on within the wrestling
storyline of the wrestling industry.
Yeah. Well, that's all heightened reality in the same way that superhero comics or action adventure comics are heightened reality too. So there's more crossover in terms of what you can do with the medium than you might think. And comics is really good for that kind of thing.
It is, and you know, there's a lot of in the pro wrestling world. There's a lot of action sequences. Very real, but very rehearsed. Because it is an athletic sport, and that action translates well into comic style art. So it's just got to be a really neat process to be a part of right now. How long have you been working in art? How long have you been illustrating?
To be honest, I don't remember a time when I wasn't drawing. I feel like I was born with a pencil in my hand, which was fun for my mom. But in all seriousness, yeah, I started drawing.
That's the third joke he's beat me to in this. This is good. This is a good thing.
I started drawing when I was 5 years old. Started telling stories not too long after that. In an odd kind of way, I tend to think of myself more as a writer who taught himself to draw than the other way around, because I approach everything in terms of story first.
Well, I think an artist, a visual artist, is, even if they don't know it, a storyteller. You have to be. Your art has to tell a story. Whether you've chosen a medium, if you're a very classical artist, and you've chosen Greek mythology, you have to tell the myth in this visual art representation. And for those guys, they get one frame to do it in. Your chosen art, you get multiple frames. At the same time, you have to unfold a story before a viewer or a reader.
Well, going back to what we were talking about before, that's why I tend to like the term graphic novelist, because if you're telling a story in comics form, you have to not simply master the ability to draw. And I'm not going to say I'm a master at that, because that makes me sound a lot more arrogant than I hope I actually am. But you have to learn how to...
But he doesn't suck.
I hope not.
Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. What I have found, or what I believe, is you have to, if you create comics start to finish, you have to master, or you have to learn more than one skill. You have to learn how to illustrate. But on top of the illustration, you have to learn how to pace a story, learn which moments to pick. And on top of that, you have to learn the skills of composition that a graphic artist needs in order to know how to lay out a page, and how to push the eye from one into the other. So a graphic novelist is somebody who learns how to use the entirety of what the medium can do to tell the story and make it so that you create this world that's easy for the reader to fall into.
I think that's a wonderful way to describe it. Like I said, we're all storytellers. It's what we do. And you have to master the art of telling your story in your medium. And a graphic novel or a comic book is a mixed medium. You have graphic representation. You have literary representation. So that's why he's a graphic novelist, because he knows that stuff. Okay, so you know what, guys that create pop culture also enjoy pop culture. So we're going to give you a chance as the novelist, as a creator, to write yourself into any pop culture universe that's out there right now. But with caveat, you got to spend a whole week there. Which means if you're going to spend the whole week and come home, you got to survive.
Yeah. So Game of Thrones is out.
Game of Thrones is out. That's a given. You're there for like 6 hours hiding.
Yeah.
And then you're dead.
I'm trying to think. You're spending an entire week in a make-believe world.
Yeah.
I'd go for something easy, probably, like...
a guest earlier wrote themselves into Calvin and Hobbes because he figured he'd make it through that.
Yeah, well, I could probably write myself into the Big Bang Theory.
Dude, look where you are.
Yeah.
You're in the Big Bang Theory.
So it wouldn't be much of a stretch. So Big Bang Theory might be as close to the alternate universe as I'd feel comfortable getting.
Yeah.
Because if I wrote myself into something like Friends, I wouldn't be one of the friends.
No,
I would be I'd be outcast there.
Yeah.
Or if I wrote myself into something like Two Broke Girls, basically the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you want to.
So look, the cool kids, the pretty girls. We don't get to hang out there, so we're gonna hang out with the guys in the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah. Plus, there's
for
pretty
some
girls.
reason,
There's plenty of pretty girls. Yeah.
Those guys are anti-nerds because they get to hang out with people in that show that they should not get to hang out with.
Yeah, it doesn't exactly work that way.
They sat at the way wrong lunch table that day.
Yeah.
We would have been we talked about this off camera, we would have been shoved in lockers if we tried to sit at those tables, but they get away with it. And Sheldon has actually become cool. I love the world we live in.
Yeah,
I love the world we live in.
We've entered the Bizarro-verse, I'm sure.
That's right, and hopefully we'll stay a while. What do you have next coming up? Are you working on anything right now, or you've got creating anything?
Couple of things. The Kickstarter for the Lanny Poffo book will be launching sometime at the beginning of next year. We're still nailing down the date. I have another project that I can't talk about yet because the contracts haven't quite been signed, but another more expansive book coming from Squared Circle. I also publish I do a self-published fantasy comic called the Elysia Chronicles.
Oh, fantastic.
Through a small press publication outside, working out of Tennessee.
Wonderful.
Yeah, the Elysia Chronicles I like to describe as the midway point between The Last Airbender and Game of Thrones. Somewhere right about there is where that is.
There's a midpoint there.
Yeah.
Cool.
So issue 1 of that is out. Issue 2 will be launching sometime probably late this month or December. And between those 2 books, I'm going to have my hands full.
That is no doubt. Those 2 books, you have the as yet unnamed secret project. You'll have to tune in later to find out what that is. And you're going to be a busy guy next year.
Oh, yeah.
That's fantastic. That is awesome, by the way. And apparently we've been chattering away here, and she's going to make me shut up. So I will listen, because that is what I'm supposed to do. And I will say thank you once again to our partners and our friends at Space Coast Comics, Something Unique Magazine, Wordfire Press, Famous Faces and Funnies, Off the Chain Radio with author Yvonne Mason, Heather Reed at the Asylum Convention and Entertainment Services, as well as our great new friends over at the Brevard Renaissance Fair. These are the people who share these videos and these creators all over the World Wide Web. We can't say thank you enough for that. I'm G.W. Pomichter. We've been hanging with graphic artist, graphic novelist, illustrator Alan McMillian. Remember, folks, tune in, log on, see who we're hanging with next.